For 731 nights, Patricia and Webb knelt beside an empty bed that used to belong to her daughter, and prayed the same 6 words into the darkness. God, please bring my baby home. On night 732, her phone finally rang. This is the story of a mother who refused to stop praying, even when the whole world told her it was time to let go. Patricia Webb lived in a small house on the outskirts of Wichita, Kansas, the same house where she had raised her daughter, Bethany, mostly on her own after Patricia's husband passed away when Bethany was just 9 years old. It had always been the two of them against the world after that, mother and daughter, close in the kind of way that made people say they looked more like sisters than parent and child. Bethany was 17 when things started to change. It began quietly, the way these things often do. New friends Patricia didn't recognize. Late nights that turned into later nights. A closeness between mother and daughter that slowly, painfully, started slipping away, replaced by slammed doors and arguments neither of them fully understood the reason for. Patricia tried everything a mother could think to try. She set rules. She loosened rules. She sat up late waiting by the front door. She cried in her closet where Bethany couldn't hear her. Nothing seemed to reach the daughter she used to know, the one who used to crawl into bed beside her during thunderstorms, the one who used to tell her everything. Then one October morning, Patricia woke up to find Bethany's room empty. A note on the kitchen table said only that she needed to figure some things out on her own, that Patricia shouldn't worry, and that she would call when she was ready. She was 18 by then, technically an adult, which meant there was little law enforcement could do beyond filing a report. Patricia called everyone she could think of. Bethany's friends, most of whom claimed they didn't know anything. Extended family. She drove around Wichita for weeks, stopping at diners and gas stations, showing Bethany's photo to anyone who might have seen her. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into a year. And still, nothing. No calls. No messages. Just silence that grew heavier with every passing week, the kind of silence that makes a mother's imagination run to the darkest places at 3 in the morning, wondering if her daughter was safe, wondering if she was even still alive. Patricia's sister, Carol, gently suggested more than once that maybe it was time to consider accepting that Bethany might not want to be found, that continuing to hold on to hope this tightly might only be prolonging Patricia's own pain. I know you don't want to hear this, Carol said one evening, sitting across from Patricia's kitchen table, the same table where that note had once been left. But it's been over a year, Pat. Maybe it's time to start healing instead of waiting. Patricia shook her head, tears in her eyes but her voice steady. I can't stop praying for her, Carol. I won't. A mother doesn't stop believing her child is coming home. Not until God tells her otherwise. Every single night for those 2 years, Patricia followed the same ritual. She would sit on the edge of Bethany's still-made bed, in a room she had never changed, never packed away, never turned into a home office or a guest room the way some well-meaning friends had gently suggested. She would fold her hands, close her eyes, and pray the same simple, desperate prayer. Lord, I don't know where she is tonight. I don't know if she's safe, if she's scared, if she even remembers how much her mama loves her. But I trust you know exactly where she is. Please watch over my baby. Please bring her home. Please don't let her be afraid to call. Some nights the prayer came out steady and full of faith. Other nights it came out broken, barely audible through tears, Patricia so exhausted from worry that she could hardly form the words. But she never missed a night. Not once, in 731 days. She went to church every Sunday during that time too, sitting in the same pew, and the congregation at Riverside Community Church had taken to praying for Bethany by name during their Wednesday night prayer service, an entire church family holding on to hope alongside a mother who refused to let hers die. Pastor Greg Ellison, who had watched Patricia's faith weather 2 years of silence without breaking, once told her something during a particularly hard week. Patricia, I don't know when God's going to answer this prayer. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow or 10 years from now. But I know this. A mother's prayer doesn't just disappear into nothing. It reaches somewhere. And I believe with everything in me that it's reaching Bethany, even if she doesn't know it yet. 1,500 miles away, in a small apartment outside Portland, Oregon, Bethany Webb was living a life far removed from the daughter Patricia remembered. She had fallen in with people who didn't have her best interests at heart, made choices in those 2 years she was deeply ashamed of, and slowly found herself trapped in a cycle of survival that felt impossible to escape, too embarrassed and afraid to call the mother she had walked away from, convinced that too much time had passed, that too much damage had been done, that Patricia would never want her back after everything. But Bethany would say later that there was a strange feeling that had followed her for months, a persistent, uncomfortable pull she couldn't explain, moments in the middle of ordinary days where thoughts of her mother would surface out of nowhere, unbidden, insistent. She would be walking down a street and suddenly picture her mother's face so clearly it startled her. She would be lying awake at night and hear, almost like a whisper in her memory, her mother's voice saying her name the way she used to when Bethany was small. She didn't know it, but on the very nights those feelings hit hardest, Patricia had been kneeling beside that empty bed, praying her name into the dark, 1,500 miles away. The night everything finally changed, Bethany was sitting alone in that small apartment, at what she later described as the lowest point of those 2 years, feeling more lost and more ashamed than she had ever felt in her life. And in that moment, almost involuntarily, she found herself picking up her phone and dialing a number she still knew by heart, even after 2 years of silence. It was almost midnight in Wichita when Patricia's phone rang. She had just finished her nightly prayer, still sitting on the edge of Bethany's bed, and when she saw the unknown number flash across her screen, something in her, some instinct only a mother would understand, told her to answer it immediately. Hello? There was a long pause on the other end. Then, quiet, trembling, barely more than a whisper. Mom? It's me. It's Bethany. Patricia says she doesn't remember standing up. She doesn't remember dropping to her knees on the floor beside that bed. She only remembers sobbing so hard she could barely get words out, repeating her daughter's name over and over like she still couldn't quite believe it was real. Bethany. Bethany, baby, is that really you? Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me after everything Baby, stop. Stop right there. I have prayed for you every single night for 2 years. There is nothing that would ever stop me from wanting to hear your voice. Where are you? Tell me where you are, and I am coming to get you myself. Patricia flew to Portland 3 days later. She would later describe walking through that airport terminal as the longest walk of her life, and then seeing Bethany standing there, thinner, older, tired in a way that broke her mother's heart, but alive, and home, in the most important sense of the word, as the single greatest moment of her life outside of the day Bethany was born. They held each other in that airport for almost 10 minutes without saying a word, both of them crying too hard to speak, while strangers walked past, some slowing down to watch, a few wiping their own eyes at the sight of a reunion that clearly meant more than words could carry. Bethany moved back to Wichita that same month. The road back wasn't instant or easy. There was healing to do, on both sides, hard conversations, patient rebuilding of trust that had been broken over 2 years apart. But Patricia says she never once resented the process, because every hard conversation was still a conversation she got to have with a daughter she had once feared she might never speak to again. The first Sunday Bethany walked into Riverside Community Church beside her mother, the entire congregation rose to their feet. People who had prayed for a girl they had never met, by name, every single Wednesday for 2 years, wept openly as Patricia walked her daughter down that aisle to their usual pew. Pastor Ellison didn't need to say much that morning. He simply looked out over that congregation and said, "This is what happens when a mother refuses to stop praying." Bethany still lives near her mother in Wichita today. She's rebuilding her life slowly, one steady season at a time, and she often says that she believes, without a doubt, that the strange, persistent pull she felt toward her mother during those 2 years wasn't coincidence. She believes it was her mother's prayers, traveling somewhere she couldn't see, reaching her even in a life that had taken her 1,500 miles away from home. Patricia still keeps Bethany's room exactly the way it was, though these days, Bethany actually sleeps in it most nights. And Patricia still prays every evening, though the prayer has changed now, from "bring my baby home" to a simple, "grateful thank you for bringing my baby home." If you are praying for a child tonight, wherever they are, however far they've wandered, however long the silence has lasted, please hold on to Patricia's story. 731 nights of prayer felt, at times, like they were disappearing into nothing. But they weren't. They were reaching somewhere Patricia couldn't see, working on a heart she couldn't touch, preparing a homecoming she couldn't yet imagine. Don't stop praying for the ones you love. Your prayers are reaching further than you know. And somewhere, right now, they might be the very thing bringing someone home.